grab a drink, get comfy, and prepare to learn about
the strange, the unusual, and the downright stupid things you didn't think that you needed to know about.
I'm Kaila.
And I'm Brooke. And this is Drunk in the Library.
And we're back.
Hello,
again.
everybody.
Hello. We have no questions, comments, concerns at all. So just support us.
Mm-hmm.
Please and thank you. And that's that.
Yes.
End episode.
Just kidding. That's it, bye, guys.
Alrighty. You're first.
Okay. I got a quickie today. I think that we'll probably blow through this, but it's very weird.
Okay.
It's a weird one.
I'm here for it.
So my sources are Wikipedia, obviously. I'd like one episode where I don't use Wikipedia as a reference.
It's just so damn good, though.
It's so good and so convenient.
Yes.
Atlas Obscura and nationalinterest.org.
Okay.
So today I'm going to tell you about the Anglo-Zanzibar War.
Okay.
The Anglo-Zanzibar War has gone down in history as being the shortest war of all time. It lasted approximately 30 to 45 minutes.
Oh.
That's it.
That's quick.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, because I did not know previously, Zanzibar is an island off the east coast of Africa.
Okay.
But it's now part of Tanzania.
Okay.
On August 25th, 1896, the Sultan of Zanzibar was killed. There were rumors that Sultan Hamad had been poisoned, and the most likely culprit of this was his cousin Khalid bin Barghash. Zanzibar was kind of ripe with espionage at the time, and it was, super common for, the men in the royal family to just be, killing one another in order to become sultan themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Zanzibar was technically its own country at this time, but Britain was what's called a protectorate state.
Okay.
So a protectorate is, a dependent territory that has been granted local autonomy, and some independence. So, they're under British rule, but they also, the two governments kind of work together to rule the country.
Okay.
So the British legal structure functioned alongside the Sultan state of the Zanzibar system. So Hamad dies, and his cousin Khalid moves immediately into the palace and declares himself Sultan, same day.
Okay.
The British are pretty upset about this because Hamad was, sympathetic to the British influence, whereas Khalid wanted to, completely separate Zanzibar from that rule.
Okay.
In a previous treaty-type situation, it had been agreed upon that anyone who took up the seat of Sultan would be approved of by the British government, and Khalid was not. So the British government was kind of hey, I'm giving you 2 days to get the fuck out of office.
Okay.
They sent him an ultimatum that Khalid and his forces would stand down and vacate the palace. Obviously, Khalid was nah, dude, not doing that. So instead, he barricaded himself into the palace.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
That's how we do things.
Yes. Consul Basil Cave, which, that's a great name. Basil Cave. Fucking fantastic. Chef's kiss. And First Minister Lloyd William Matthews began to gather the naval troops. Basil warned Khalid that what he did constituted as an act of rebellion and that he would push back as necessary.
Okay.
Khalid sent a Zanzibari messenger to the Brits with a message of, "We have no intention of hauling down our flag, and we do not believe you would open fire on us." So Cave said...
He's basically I fucking dare you.
That's literally what it was, yeah. Cave said, "We do not want to open fire, but unless you do as you are told, we shall certainly do so." Bitch, listen up.
We coming.
And so thus began the beginning of the shortest war in history. At 9 a.m. on August 27th, British ships came together in the harbor. The town is, right on the water.
Okay.
And you can, the palace is literally waterfront. So the British ships were basically able to, pull right up to the palace windows and just start shooting.
Okay.
Almost immediately, the royal yacht was sunk, which was all of the navy that Zanzibar had, was a luxury yacht.
Yo, bold move of them to be like, dare you to try to
Right?
fuck us up when all they have is a goddamn yacht.
The British, like, ship saved the whole crew as the yacht sank. And then, like, it was just kind of chilling in the harbor with just its masts poking up. All right, sure.
Cool.
The battle lasted about 38 minutes. It was really just Khalid and his forces, like, holding up inside the palace. There wasn't really much of a battle.
Yeah, because their only fucking thing sunk.
Yeah, and their cache of weapons was destroyed almost immediately. At the end of it, his men fled him. The Sultan's flag was pulled down, and that was it. The war was over, and the British had won. A single British soldier was wounded, and 500 Zanzibari men died.
Done fucked up,
yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So Khalid had fled and sought refuge at the German consulate. He was then smuggled off of the island to German East Africa, where he was given, like, political asylum. And he remained there until he was captured by British forces in 1916, when a German colony city was, like, surrendered to the British. He was exiled to Seychelles and then St. Helena, and then eventually just made his way back to East Africa, and he died there.
Okay.
That's the Anglo-Zanzibar War. The shortest war in history. You seem concerned. Do you have questions?
That war lasted longer than the telling of it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't really have questions. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I found that and I was like, this is the weirdest fucking thing I've ever heard. A 38-minute war. If only all of our wars could be 38 minutes.
There would just be a lot more of them, though.
Yeah, that's true.
They just would be like, all right, every couple minutes, they'd be like, we're at war. It's like, what are we even at war for? I don't know, but we're at war.
Nobody knows.
We'll figure it out in the first 5 minutes.
Also, just want to point out, like, if you're like, oh man, those British people, they gotta keep their hands off other people's business. Now, Khalid was like, the British people wanted to end the slave trade in Zanzibar. Khalid was like, nah, we're still doing this. So, really, like, Khalid sucked.
Yeah, he did. Fuck him, man.
Yeah, he got 500 people killed.
For no fucking reason.
No reason.
Like, what did he think he was gonna do when they showed up?
Right? Dude, you got one gun. And
like a half a yacht. Like,
they're the British fleet.
Also, like, if your palace is on the water, did you not see them rolling on up and you're not like, oh, fuck.
He's like, oh, they're serious. Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Oh, okay. They're not fucking around.
It's fine. Just get in the basement, everybody.
Yeah, right? What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So, this goes down as our shortest segment as well as the shortest war.
Yeah, it does. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well, enjoy a brief ad.
All right, my friend, what do you got?
All right, so mine's a little bit longer.
Slightly longer?
Yeah.
Like a minute?
Yeah. only 1 minute, though.
I'm watching.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
So, in 1917, two cousins, Frances Griffiths and Elsie Wright, would capture a series of photographs that would change and captivate the world. What was in these photographs? Fairies.
What?
The only problem is that it was a completely elaborate hoax.
Oh, man.
So today we're going to be talking about the Cottingley Fairy hoax of 1917.
Okay.
So I knew about this story, but didn't know about this story because there was a movie made about it.
Okay.
That I feel like my grandma bought me when I was a kid. I think it was just called Fairy Tale, A True Story or something. I get this story also mixed up with The Secret Garden because I thought The Secret Garden was about fairies, but it's not.
No, I don't believe it is.
No. So the first photographs were taken in July of 1917. Frances and Elsie were playing in a small stream, or by a small stream that ran through the garden of Elsie's home. It's kind of unclear what really prompted them to, like, start to make this whole story up.
Okay.
They
They were young, right?
I think one of them was 10, the other was 6, or one was 9, the other was 16. So, like,
there's a big age gap.
There's a pretty large age difference between them. So, like...
It was definitely, like, the 9-year-old was, like, playing, and he was like, oh, look, fairies, and then the other one was like, we could photograph this.
Yeah.
That's
like,
exactly how this happened.
Yeah. I think I actually might go into, like, there's, like, a couple things that, that they explain later on as to what happened here. But they went to Elsie's father and asked him if they could borrow his camera so that they can photograph the supposed fairies that they played with by the stream.
Okay.
So he showed them how to use it, and they were on their way. So sources are, like, a little weird in regards to this. Like, basically what most of them claim is that they came back an hour later and claimed that they photographed fairies.
Okay.
So, Arthur Wright, who's Elsie's father, had a knack for amateur photography, and therefore, like, had built his own darkroom in the house. So he, like, this was during a time where, like, they used plates in cameras.
Okay.
So, like, you would have to develop the plate into, like, pictures.
Okay.
So, when he developed the plate that night, there were, in fact, fairies posing with Frances in the garden. But he wasn't convinced. He was like...
Yeah, obviously.
What the fuck
Yeah,
is
because
this?
he's a fucking adult.
Yeah. So he asked the girls about the photographs. They were like, no, they're real, we swear, they're totally real. And he's like, you're fucking lying.
Listen, you little shits.
Fuck no, there's not. But they stuck to that story. So he knew that, like, his daughter was particularly gifted in the arts and had pretty much figured out early on that, like, the supposed fairies were some sort of, like, cardboard cutout.
Okay. Very advanced for, like, early 1900s.
Very advanced for, like, a bunch of children.
Yeah.
So, a month or two later, the girls borrowed the camera again and came back with a photo of Elsie holding a gnome in her hand. So after the development of the second plate, Arthur refused to let the girls borrow the camera again.
That's fair.
Because he was like, I'm not dealing with this shit. Like, knock it off.
You guys are wasting my hard-earned camera time.
So he thought that they were basically, like, somehow manipulating the camera into, like, photographing these particular, like, instances of fairies.
Yeah, sure.
So he's like, you're not going to play with it anymore because you're just fucking around with it.
Right.
So, while he didn't believe that the girls were truly photographing fairies, his wife definitely did.
Oh my god.
She was like, fuck yes. This is our big break. So she would be vital.
He's like, Linda, you're a fucking idiot.
And she's like, no, fairies are real. There's going to be some key players in here, though, that you would not expect.
Okay.
So she's, like, vital in making sure that these photographs, like, went public. So for the next few years, nothing really happened. Like, they basically showed them around to, like, the neighbors, and the neighbors were like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, again, because you're adults. If somebody showed me a picture of a fairy, I'd be like, okay, cool, you know how to Photoshop.
Yeah. And, like, I mean, I feel like everybody has seen these pictures, whether they know it or not.
Okay.
I'll show you later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess at first glance, them being in black and white, you might be like, oh, okay, there might be something there. But, sure. As an adult that's semi-normal, I can look at that and be like, the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Right. Like, so it's just, like, mind-blowing to me that their mother didn't do that. But also these...
Do you think that she genuinely believed that, or she just saw it as a break?
I think she genuinely believed it, and we'll go more into that.
Okay.
I think the problem was that, like, the photos that we see today are, like, super enhanced so that they're clearer.
Right.
Back then, you might see something that's a little bit more blurry, so, like, it might be more convincing to, like, the naked eye to be like,
sure.
Yeah, sure, that looks like something. So, as I said, for the next few years, nothing really happened. It wasn't until 1919 that Polly, who's the wife's name, was attending a meeting of the Theosophical Society, where they were holding a lecture on fairies. Now, they believed in a lot of, like, things that were relatively abnormal.
Okay.
So, like, they would give lectures on those things at, like, local meeting halls or whatever.
Sure.
And this one just happened to be on fairies.
We both know that if I were around then, I'd probably be going to these.
I mean, I'd go to it now.
Yeah, same.
For fun.
Yo, can we get a fairy lecture?
Yeah, right? So she, going to this, brought with her the fairy pictures that her daughter and niece had taken and showed them to the speaker of the conference. So there they came to the attention of a leading member of the society, Edward Gardner. So Gardner took the plate negatives and sent them to, like, this photography expert named Harold Snelling.
Okay.
And his thought was that they were genuine. He was like, this is legit. There's nothing that's, like, been fucked around with here. Mm-hmm. Like, this is some, like, legit fairy photography. So this is where somebody very famous gets involved.
Oh, really?
That just, I don't understand. So, author, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, shit.
Was, like, super into spiritualism.
Sure.
So he had been, like, he knew about these pictures as, like, from various sources and became super interested of them. So he was, like, doing, like I guess he was, like, commissioned to write an article for a magazine that wanted to know kind of about this stuff. So he kind of really took a deep dive.
Okay.
So Doyle contacted Gardner in June of 1920 to kind of, like, get the backstory on them. Like, he wanted to know who took these, where are they coming from, like, how did they take them. So obviously it came as a surprise when it's like, oh yeah, it was like these two little girls that were just playing near a stream and happened to photograph them. So he ended up writing to Elsie and Arthur and asking if it was okay that he used these, like, photographs in his magazine.
Huh, wow.
So they were like, okay, like, I guess so. But he, or wasn't him, hold on. I lost my spot. So Arthur was like, yeah, it's fine. You can use them. But, like, I don't want to be paid for them because, like, if they end up being real, then I feel like I just, like, got money for something that's,
you
like...
exploited the fairies.
Yes, basically.
Which, as we know, is a bad idea.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't want to be involved in that. Like, I don't think they're real,
but, like, I don't need that on my back.
Yeah. So they ended up actually, like, taking these to Kodak and getting, like, another opinion on them.
Okay.
And Kodak basically said, like, I mean, they don't look fake, but we're not putting, like, our seal of approval on them. Because, we don't know, like, something else could have been done. Like, they could have, you know, propped things up.
Right.
So, like, it might be a genuine photograph, but, like, if there's something else going on in that photograph that's, like, man-made or manipulated.
Yeah, I'm not putting my name on that.
No, not at all. And they did that with another company, too. I can't remember the name of it. I don't even think I wrote it down. But, you know, they also were like,
okay.
They were a little, like, hesitant.
Not touching this.
Yeah. So, like, everyone was kind of, like, in agreement that, like, there's just no way. There's no fucking way that these people are, like, actually taking photographs of fairies.
Yeah, obviously. Again, we're adults.
Yeah. So, the other company, like, also kind of did the same thing as Kodak, but they, like, for them, they were like, well, there might be some fake things in here.
Okay.
They couldn't pinpoint what it was, but they were pretty sure that something was faked in it.
Okay.
So then, Doyle also showed the pictures to this physicist and, like, psychic researcher. His name was Oliver Lodge. He thought that the photographs were fake. He was like, there's...
Okay.
No.
I approve of that.
His whole thing was that he thinks that, like, somehow these girls commissioned a troupe of dancers to come in, pretend to be fairies, and, like, that's how they got these photographs. Like...
All right, that's elaborate, but okay.
He also, like, there was people who said that, like, there's no way that they're real because their hairstyles are, like, super modern. Like, first of all, don't assume that the fairies aren't up to date on the latest.
Maybe we get our hairstyles from them.
Yeah. what about that says fake? Because they want to be up to date with the latest hairstyles in the modern world, right?
They're probably human sympathizers if they're coming out to play with these two girls.
Yeah.
They're into the hair.
Yeah, they're feeling it. So then Doyle had to go away basically to Australia because he was, like, organizing some, like, lecture tour.
Okay.
But in the meantime, he sent Gardner back to hang out with, like, the Wright family. This was in 1920. And he basically gave instructions that, like, get them to photograph more fairies.
Okay.
So, like, he brought with him 2 cameras, extra plates, and was, like, gonna give it to the girls and just be like, go do your thing, ladies.
Okay.
So the other thing that's, like, important to note in this, too, is that, like, so Frances didn't actually, like, live with the family. She was only visiting from, I think, South Africa.
Okay.
So she was visiting with her mother because her father was away, like, in the war. This was, like, during World War I.
Okay.
So eventually when he came back, they ended up moving. They didn't go back to South Africa, but they moved to a different town in England. So she wasn't with, like, Elsie and the family at the time. They had to, like, get her to come back.
Okay.
So, like, they knew that this was, like,
a process.
And, like, the girls were aware of the fact that, like, they kind of fucked up here.
Yeah.
Like, now they're involved.
You've got a really famous author involved here now, and your cousin now has to come back from where she was to hang out with you and take these fake photos.
Yeah. So, like Elsie's father was, like, I mean, as I said, from the beginning, he knew that they probably had faked these somehow.
Yeah.
And, like, when Frances left to go back home, and, like, Elsie wasn't in her room, they searched her whole room. They searched everywhere to see if there was any evidence that the girls had faked anything.
Huh.
They couldn't find anything, though. So, like, that'll come back in here later on. But he was convinced, but his wife is just like, no,
they're real.
They're for realsies. So Gardner, on the other hand, really believed that they were being genuine about all of this. He thought that the girls weren't making it up. Like, he thought that the family just seemed like, you know, they were just as surprised. Yeah, like, they were just as surprised that this had happened. So he eventually, like, returned to, he came back to, like, the house with them. As I said, he had 2 cameras, and then they had 24 photographic plates. So there's a lot there.
Wow, yeah.
They got Frances to come back to the house and, like, hang out. And asked them, obviously, to take more photos. So until August 19th, because this was in July. So until, like, this was at the end of July that they started doing this. Until August 19th, the weather was really bad. So, like, they couldn't go out and take any of these pictures because they claimed that the fairies weren't going to come out, like, if the weather's bad. Okay. Also, I'm sure it's probably not good for the cameras either.
Yeah, probably. And also your cardboard cutouts are going to melt.
Yeah, true. But also Frances and Elsie were like, oh, they're not going to come out if there's people watching. Like, they'll only come out for us.
That's
so, like,
reasonable, yes.
You guys can't be here during this.
Right.
So they had to, like, send Elsie's mother away to, like, hang out with her sister and go get tea or something.
Oh my God. Which one's the older one?
I think Elsie was... No, I think Frances was the older one.
Okay. So now they're also, like... This is several years later, so Frances, who was 16 originally, is now pushing 20, coming back to hang out with her cousin and take pictures
I'm pretty sure she was 16 at this time. I need to look it up again because I don't know why I didn't write down their ages because they were super young. Like, I'm pretty sure one was 9, one was 16, or, like, one was 9, the other was, like, 13. Okay. Somewhere in that, like, age bracket, but I felt like they did have a pretty big gap.
Okay.
Like, in their ages. So once they were alone, they happened to take more, like, photographs. Of course. So 2 of those appeared to show more fairies. So they all have different names. There's Frances and the Leaping Fairy, where she has one that's, like, super close to her nose. There's another one called Fairy Offering Posy of Harebells to Elsie, which is, like, a fairy hovering or tiptoeing on a branch and offering Elsie a flower.
Okay.
And I think the other one's called Fairies and Their Sunbath. And this one is, like, hard to, like, even, like, I looked at it, and it's, like, really hard to distinguish what you're looking at.
Okay.
Like, it's kind of, like, cutouts almost in, like, a bramble of vines and trees. Like, it's really difficult to distinguish anything in there. Especially since it's in black and white, too.
Yeah.
So you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. So then, you know, Doyle took this, put it in his article that he was working on, and made them, like, higher resolution. So, like, they're obviously not what we're going to see today, but, like, they were better
than
they were. And before this, they didn't want to enhance anything because they didn't want people to look at them and be like, well, they look like they were doctored somehow. Like,
right.
They wanted to leave them as is, so it was open for interpretation as to what you were looking at.
Okay.
So they wanted them in their, like, purest form.
Okay.
So when he put the pictures in this this article and wrote the article, he changed their names because he did, and he changed, like, the family's name too for, like,
to not draw attention.
Yeah, so they ended up being called, like, Alice and Iris, and I don't remember what their last name was. I think it was, like, the Carpenters. But he, like, his whole goal was to, like, convince the general public that fairies existed.
Right.
Like, he thought that meant that we were in, like, a higher plane of, like, evolution now, and that we were moving forward as a society.
All right.
Like, his beliefs are just...
Yeah. I've never read, like, Sherlock Holmes, but I've heard that, like, he was quite weird.
Yes, and a lot of people thought he was crazy because of things like this.
Yeah.
Where, like, the general public could clearly see that there was some kind of ruse going on here, but he was so, like, adamant that this wasn't fake, that this was really going on, and they were just like, man, you're crazy.
Dude, you're nuts.
You're losing it.
Yeah. So
it was, like, kind of damaging to his reputation, too, because, like, you know, you look like you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he thought, too, that if they accepted the existence of fairies, that they were more likely to accept other things as being, like, existent, too.
Sure.
So, as I said, most people, they were, like, the photographs were kind of mixed reviewed. Some people thought, okay, like, there's something going on here. Other people were like, no fucking way. So it was just, like, one of those things that was just kind of, like, all over for a while, but then it started to kind of fall out.
Yeah, obviously.
Another thing that I thought was interesting was that somebody made a comment later on that the fairies that were in these photographs looked like the fairies in this certain, like, fairy tale book. And it just doesn't make sense to me that more people didn't notice that, because it was, like, a common book that, like, a lot of kids had.
Yeah.
Like, how did you not realize? Like, I would have looked at it and been like, that looks like this fairy from this book.
Right.
So that was, like, a big thing too that really got, like, the public to be like,
a little suspicious.
That's sus. So, you know, by 1921, nobody cared about it anymore.
Sure,
they were just, like, over it. Elsie and Frances moved on with their lives. They eventually, like, moved abroad, got married, lived their lives. In 1966, a reporter from a local newspaper found Elsie, and she was back in England. So, like, he, like, went out there to go interview her.
Wow.
And she said that the fairies might have been a figment of her imagination, and left open the possibility that she believed that she photographed her thoughts.
Wow.
So she, like, thought that there were fairies. She really believed that they were seeing fairies, and therefore there were fairies.
All right.
Okay. So that kind of sparked interest in them again, and, like, this came up out of the water again.
Huh.
So BBC did another program that, like, investigated the whole case in 1971. But, you know, once again, Elsie kind of, like, stuck to her story. She was like, they're figments of my imagination that I just manifested.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, like, years later that they would finally, like, come clean about it. So in 1983, they were interviewed for a magazine called The Unexplained, and basically admitted that the photographs were fake.
Fucking finally, man.
Yeah, like, what are you doing holding on to this? Yeah. So they claimed that in reality they actually had seen fairies, but they never actually photographed them.
Sure.
Elsie had said that she took the illustrations of dancing girls from a popular children's book called Princess Mary's Gift Book and drew wings on them. And then, like, propped them up with hairpins in, like, the ground and made it look like they were actually there.
Huh. I mean, like, good for them, man. That's, honestly, to fool an entire nation for 60 years, I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad.
Like, for kids, that's deep.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That's fucking deep.
And then to carry that weight around with you, all I keep thinking is, like, I just can't imagine the panic those girls felt when they were like, yeah, we need you guys to take more fairy pictures. And they were like, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy
That's exactly
fuck.
what happens here. So they said in another interview that, or Elsie said that she and Francis were just so embarrassed at this point because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was involved.
Yeah.
And he was, like, convinced that they had actually taken these pictures.
And they're like, holy shit.
And they were so embarrassed of themselves because they didn't know how to say, like, we were just fucking around.
Yeah.
So, and, like, they felt really bad about it.
bet.
But, like, they're so deep in their lie at this point. And, like, so many
You can't
people...
go back now.
Yeah, like,
You
so
just
many
gotta
people
stick to it.
are interested that they just... They don't know. They don't know what to do. So, like, Frances, on the other hand, no offense, seems like kind of a bitch. She goes on to say, like, I never even thought of it as being a fraud. It was just Elsie and I having a bit of fun, and I can't understand to this day why they were taken in. They wanted to be taken in. Like, So, at no point did you think, like,
This is wrong.
I should just tell my uncle this is fake.
Right.
Instead of, like, being adamant that they're, like, legit.
Yeah. And, like, it's just so crazy that it was so blown out of proportion because this is exactly the type of shit that kids do.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Hey, Mom, I saw a fairy in the backyard. Cool, good for you. But at no point are you actually like, holy shit, you saw a fairy? How did this take the whole nation by storm? It's just crazy.
Because my thought on it is, like, I told you, the mother believed that this was legit.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're hearing it from a grown adult say, oh, my daughter took these photographs, and there's just, like, there's no way that they can be fake because she's talked about fairies for so long. Like, why would she make that up? And you're hearing it from an adult. Like, it happens now. How many times, like, have adults said stuff that you're like, that's not fucking true. But other people are like, no, it totally is.
Yeah.
Why? Only a child would make something like that up. Like...
Literally, a child did.
Yeah. So good old Polly
Damn.
over here is like, we're gonna go to the fucking society with this.
That's fucking crazy. That's super interesting and bizarre.
Mm-hmm. I want to watch the movie that this was
I want to
based
watch
off
the movie
of,
too, yeah.
because I think it came out in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But, damn.
What a wild ride that was.
Yeah.
That was just so interesting.
Yeah, just two kids getting caught up in a real big lie.
That's just so crazy. What a just bizarre happenstance thing.
And, like, the stress of that as, like, as, like, a 9-year-old.
You're, like, dealing with fooling an entire nation, including an incredibly famous author.
Yep. And you're just like, I gotta go along with this now.
You're like whispering to your older cousin. You're like, hey, man, I think we should fess up. And she's like, no. You cut out those goddamn fairies.
Yeah. Just keep cutting them.
Oh, man.
It's just like...
I don't want to have that burden sitting on my shoulders. Good.
No.
I'm really glad she eventually came clean because, like, could you imagine going to your grave with that? That is the shit I do not want to carry to the next life.
Yeah, but the thing that she did carry to it was that she maintained that she definitely saw something. That they couldn't,
she was a
photograph
kid, man.
Maybe
guess she
so.
thought she did see something.
Well, I didn't put it in here either, but, like, at one point, there was, like, I want to say, like, a psychic medium almost that was brought in onto the land with, like, one of the girls, and, like, they had to walk down to that stream together, and he was like, oh, this place is, like, crawling with fairies, and she's like, yep, I know. And, like, even said to him, like, oh, yeah, there's so many all over here, and, like, he kind of, like, encouraged that behavior.
Maybe she thought she did see something, though. Like, I mean, like, how many kids... I mean, you know me. I was a fairy girl.
I know you were.
I was fucking obsessed with fairies as a kid.
I know.
If I had the opportunity to tell people I had seen fairies, I would have stuck to that.
I would have, too, but, like, I also would have probably early on been like, I've seen them, but these photographs aren't real.
Yeah. Yeah, and... Like, the mind plays pretty intense tricks on you, too. Like, maybe she had a dream she saw fairies and then convinced herself it actually happened. I did that when I was a kid. Like, I had this dream that I saw Santa Claus, and for years, I told people I saw Santa Claus.
I think I saw a fairy once. I told you about that glitter thing that went across the road the one time.
Yeah.
What else is that going to be? If that's a ghost, I hope when I become a ghost, I become
You're
glittery.
a glitter ghost.
I want to be a glitter ghost. If not, that was fucking cool. But I don't know, like, especially since, like, one of them was old enough to know better.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
One of them was clearly aware that, like, this was going to have some severe consequences if we just, like, kept this lie up.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, oh, Mom, I didn't eat my dinner, or I ate my dinner tonight, hee hee, but I gave it to the dog.
But, like, that's the thing is, like... Even when they first started taking those pictures and they were like, no, Dad, this is real. And not in my wildest dreams would I assume that it would get blown up to that ridiculous proportion.
Well, the other thing is, too, is that, like, while the dad didn't believe in them, when he was finally asked for permission to use those photos, he was like, yeah, I guess so, just don't give me money for it, like, just in case. But, like, you knew, man, that those things weren't real. So, like, you're part of this conspiracy at this point because you're just encouraging this behavior by giving it to a famous author to put in his magazine. Like, you could have said, no, they're really not real. Like, they're just kids that are playing by a creek. Like, it's just not legit. And the girls ended up admitting, too, that they had made these cutouts and then threw them in the stream, like, when they were done, so that there'd be no evidence that they, like, ever did this.
Yo, that seems to me like Frances had some malicious intent.
Like, well...
Poor little Elsie is just, like, a,
So the other thing was, too, was that with Elsie, apparently she used to play by that creek a lot. And occasionally, as kids do, they fall in and they get all dirty and muddy, and then they come back up to the house and Mom's pissed about it. So, that had happened a couple times, and she was, like, real bummed out about it. So Frances was like, I'll make you feel better. Let's take pictures of us posing with fairies. We'll just, like, make up that shit. And then they did. And then, you know, she takes these photos, and then the other one wants photos with them, too.
Yeah,
so then they have all of them. But, like, that's one thing to do that. It's another thing to then go back to the house and completely lie about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Like... As I said, one of you knew better than to lie and say anything about it.
Damn, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, glad I got to talk about that one.
Me too.
Because I've known about the story forever. I just didn't know it had a name. Like, I thought it was just like, I literally put on my notes, the true story of the secret garden. Nope.
Wrong.
Nope. And then when I Googled it, I Googled, like, secret garden fairies. And everything was like, you're wrong. Cottingley fairy hoax. And I was like, yes, that one. So, yeah, that's what I got for you.
All right, cool.
There's tons of books on that if people want to go look them up.
Yeah, I'd be interested in reading one of those.
There's quite a few of them.
Also, The Secret Garden, because it's perfect.
I've never read it.
Oh, my God, it's so good.
I don't even know what it's about.
It's so good. I don't really remember it that well. But I know it was one of my favorites as a kid.
I think they just remade that again into a movie.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I think you're right. I feel like I vaguely remember hearing about that.
I feel like Colin Firth's in it.
I mean, I love Colin Firth.
Yeah, I'm almost positive that Colin Firth's in it. I, like, have this picture of it, and I don't know the rest of it. But I feel like it might have been HBO that did it.
Ooh, then I probably have access to it.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, or Amazon. Maybe it was Amazon, but you have access to that,
yeah.
Too. All right.
Anyway, check out YouTube again if you haven't. We've got a new video that just went up last night. And meet us back here next week for more weird shit.
Like always, bye.